Okay, here's another one that could use some help from the hue saturation slider. So again, I'm going to do hue saturation. Something else though, I mentioned you can do levels. Let me go ahead and do the levels first. So if you open levels, you can go to your individual channels and you can, let's see, if I go this way, it makes everything a little bit more cyan. So I don't want that. If I go this way, it shifts everything a little bit redder. So I can just warm this up by moving each of these sliders, and let's see, that's making it a little bit more yellowy. I think I'll go in that way a little, and then let's try the blue slider. You can see this makes it more yellow. Obviously, I don't want to go too much. Okay, and there we go. So that kind of warmed it up just a smidge. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and open up my hue saturation, and I'm gonna do my little trick. I'm gonna actually tweak my yellows, so I can just go straight to my yellows, or I could use my hand right here and select the yellows. So I'm gonna select the yellows, and I'm gonna just shift those. And you don't wanna go too much, right? Like that's too much. Okay, and I don't wanna go, like, I don't think it should be dark, dark, dark red either. But let's just make them a little bit more, and I can go take my eyeball on and off, and I can see what I'm impacting. Okay, I can also take my saturation and bump that up a little bit. And then I'm gonna do my greens as well. I'll shift those a little bit and bump that up as well. Okay, I can also do some brightness contrast. I can do my brightness contrast here. I like using curves personally, so I like to lift up my image, and then maybe I'm gonna add a little bit of contrast here. I like that. Again, before, after, before, after. It's looking a little bit too much on the projector, but that's okay. All right, and maybe I wanna brighten this area over here, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab my curves. I'm gonna lift up, because I wanna brighten this area, but the rest of the image is getting way too bright, so I'm gonna take this mask, and I'm gonna fill it with black. You can either say edit, fill with black, and then that gets rid of the change, and then I can use my white paintbrush to paint it in. And again, I have a 0 hardness, low opacity, and I'm just gonna paint in a little bit of light here. All right, so I'm just lightening just this area right here. And you can see before, after, before, after. I'm just lightening just that area. All right, let's say I wanna do some stuff like maybe add a little vignette. If you wanna add a vignette, you're gonna use Shift, Control, Alt, E. That's all the special keys. Shift, Control, Alt, E. I can add a filter. Let's actually add a lens blur. So I'm gonna go blur. Maybe I'll add a lens blur. Hold on, I wanna actually duplicate this layer. Control J, filter, lens blur. Let's see, blur, lens blur. Maybe I wanna blur kind of this a little bit. You can play with these sliders to do more and less blur. I would err on the side of less, because you don't want it to look too crazy. All right, that's blurred the entire thing, which I don't want. So I'm gonna put a layer mask on, and I'm gonna bring back this center into focus. Again, I'm just painting with my black paintbrush, so that way I'm basically cutting a hole into the image below. And if it's too much, you can take the opacity and turn it down a little bit. All right, and then I'll maybe finish this off with a vignette. Control, Alt, oopsies. I clicked the wrong shortcut. Shift, Control, Alt, E. Duplicate, and I'm gonna say filter, lens correction. And that's gonna allow me to apply a vignette around my edge. I have to go to this custom tab. If you want to lighten the entire picture, you would go, like all your edges, you would go to the right. If you want to darken it, you go to the left. You can see it's adding a little bit of a dark edge around there, and I'm happy with that, so I feel like I'm done. Window, history, I can do a little before and after. So here's where I started, and then there's where I ended up. Started and ended up. And you can see these are the layers I added. I did my vignette at the end. I did some selective blurring. And I added some light right here. I gave it a little bit of pop with some contrast, an S curve. I'll show you what that curve looks like. I brought the highlights up and the midpoint down. And I, most importantly, shifted my hue saturation.